So I'm really proud of my queer identity. You know, it's something that I really struggled with growing up, but actually, you know, I wouldn't change those experiences for the world.
Queer offers me a way to encompass multiple aspects of my identity under one label. So as a trans man, I've really struggled with what labels to use for my sexual orientation. And so queer kind of gives me a way to capture that as well as my gender identity.
I think coming from a Latino background, being able to call myself queer is really powerful for me, especially because it's been a term that's normally been in the margins, so being able to reclaim that is really important.
However I want to be, I am allowed that freedom by using queer.
Coming to college, not only for all kinds of people, is a daunting thing. A lot of questions come up.
It can be hard, in a sense, to explore that kind of stuff, and it can affect you mentally, it can affect you emotionally, it can also affect your own interpersonal relationships.
Especially in our society, there's a lot of erasure of queer people, so having a center that is made specifically for us is very reassuring, and it helps build confidence in folks, because when someone tells you your whole life that what you are is wrong or it's not real, coming to a place where you're accepted and you're encouraged to be who you are is very reassuring, and it just makes you feel really good.
If you're dealing with students who are LGBTQ, in addition to all the different transitions that are already taking place coming to college, definitely support services for some are not only wanted but necessary. And I think that the RCSGD has many different ways that it accommodates that, and different ways that it can advocate for students who may not be able to speak up for their needs. And it's that personal connection that they offer, and also the campus-wide connection that they work for and work towards, that's really helpful.
The LGBTQ community at UCSB, I think, is full of very warm and caring and dynamic people, and it's been wonderful for me to get to know them through events put on through the RCSGD, both professional events and social events. And it's been useful for me, especially as someone who recently came out to herself as transgender, to learn more about my own gender identity while meeting these great new people.
So the RCSGD was actually one of the first places I came to when I moved here 2 years ago. And they were very welcoming. I got all sorts of flyers and email lists, but that was so important to me to get connected to the LGBT community. It was the first thing that I did.
I think it's really important for students who maybe don't identify with what they've been told their whole lives have a space where they can talk about that. It's really exciting that so much of the language that the RCSGD puts out there and educates people about is now entering the mainstream lexicon, and that's huge for students who've always been told they are other.
And everyone is very aware of how people are at different stages of their identities. So while some people are very self-assured and self-actualized in their identities, folks like help you understand who you are and help guide you. Like, it's very, like, older members in the community definitely help out the younger members that are just coming in, like teach them and like encourage them to learn more about themselves and other folks so that they can understand the community as a whole.
They help students realize that they're not alone, and that it's really only as a community that we can create change and grow stronger together.
I think what's so exciting when having discussions about identity is that we realize that we're talking about a human experience. And for our campus community that is filled with so much vibrancy, so much support, so many services for all students, we have to remember that we can't leave anyone out. And with LGBTQ students being everywhere on campus, whether they're out or they're not, we have our role to play, every one of us, in ensuring that our services, our spaces, our interactions with students are going to be welcoming, supportive, and inclusive to everyone.
I'm relating this from my own personal perspective. When I was a student, things like this did not exist. I didn't know any people who were more senior than me in my field that were LGBTQ.
Particularly working here at UCSB, it gives me the opportunity to show students in particular that I am gay and I do work here and I am successful and I've persevered through challenges, and yeah, so I think for me it's something I'm proud of and something I try to share with students no matter what.
I think having visible and openly LGBTQ role models is really important on the campus to set a climate that is positive and that's accepting for LGBTQ students.
I struggled with my own identity for a long time as a result, and I think had there been more visibility and had there been resources available to me, I might have progressed in my own personal development much faster and reached the happy stage in my life where I am now much faster.
It's really important to be able to look at what Laverne Cox says, possibility models, and looking at your possibility of being. So, for example, having a queer Chicana professor has been really awesome to be like, that is something that I can do one day.
Some of my most recent work with the RCSGD has been through mentorship programs. So there was a retreat, for instance, this fall and the previous year's spring that brought together emerging queer leaders, and that was a great time of exploration and also just developing skills around leadership that I think really benefits our local queer community, but also just our community at large.
In relation to Greek life, I'm part of Theta Nu Kappa, multicultural and academic fraternity, and with them we've had an experience, we have a brotherhood that allows people to identify however they want and be accepted and encompassed, and it's felt very welcoming and inviting.
And one of my favorite parts about the community at UCSB is their fearlessness. Our community is strong, and I think our students really celebrate their identities in so many different ways.
I don't think that there is a UCSB LGBT community. I think there's multiple UCSB communities. I have been able to create a really strong QPOC community for myself, and specifically a queer Chicano community for myself, and I've really enjoyed that. I think that the community on campus is really radical, can be very radical, and I think that we're always willing to challenge each other. I think spaces and support services are important because growing into these identities can be a very painful process with a lot of risk.
By having these resources, people feel safer, people feel like they can outreach to certain folks and have people there to back them up. You know, you feel like you're not alone. You feel like you have someone there for you.
My first piece of advice is to recognize that you are not alone, that many people have been through what you are going through now.
Somehow finding, whether it's in a mentor or just a friend or just someone that you can confide in, like someone to experience your transition or your identity with.
Embrace the idea that the confusion is actually really a great place to create something new and really forge your own path.
Take your time and make it your own journey. There's no right or wrong way to come to terms with your identity, but know that you're supported.
I think the most important thing I've learned about LGBTQ identities is that they don't define you, but you define them. So for me especially, my identity just describes my interests/experiences as a person, and that's just one of many identities that describe me.
When you are ready to show support for that person, have an open conversation with them about, no, thanks for telling me if someone's coming out to you or someone's telling me about their transitioning. Thank them for telling you, and ask them an open-ended question. Ask them, how can I be supportive? How can I support you through this?
One thing is to educate themselves, and certainly the RCSGD provides some of that education that people can take advantage of.
I would say the number one thing that people can do most easily is to really work on using affirmative language and to think about the things that they say on a daily basis and what those words mean.
I think in order for people to actually be allies, they have to show visibility. They have to show up to these events like Safe Zone training. They have to go and understand and sort of become aware of who we are and who people in our community and the experiences that we're having.
So listening, taking a seat or stepping back is really important when folks are telling you how they're feeling, even if their experience doesn't align with your experience. It's really important to listen and be thoughtful.
So it's just like really nice to know that there have been others that have walked in a similar path to us, and they seem to be doing fine, and it's just like very hopeful, and just like it's really nice to see that.
Love.
Powerful.
Open.
Inviting.
Home.
Bridge.
Welcoming.
Colorful.
Colorful.
Impactful.
Support.
Beacon.
Creative.
Outrageous.
Innovative.
Vibrant.
Dynamic.
Community.
Community.
A community.
Community.
Unity.
Resilient.
I want to to end by telling my fabulously queer folks this. You are not your job. You are a combination of your innermost thoughts, of your intentions and motivations and actions, and these are the things that make you who you are. Thank you.
For the LGBTQ students on campus, know that we are going to be here for you at any step of your journey.